it's going down. Let's go.
Harmeet, I want to thank you for being on the program today, and I appreciate your commentary yesterday. It was, in fact, the first, I believe, member of the Trump administration to hop on and say this. The Civil Rights Division is investigating the potential violations of the FACE Act. These people are desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. And then you tagged Pam Bondi. Can you give me an update on this post, Harmeet?
Well, yes, actually, I posted that from an airplane, and Pam Bondi and I, my boss, had already been in touch about this incident, what we're going to do about it. And so I'm working hand in hand with her. We have sent federal prosecutors last night from my office in DC to Minnesota. They should be landing any moment now. We activated the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office as well. And this has the highest attention of the Attorney General and my Department of Justice team, because it is, as you said in your intro, this isn't actually a question of whether we're going to stand for it. We don't stand for it in this country. And not every case that we do at the DOJ gets the headlines, but we've already prosecuted numerous attacks on churches so far in the last 9 months since I took office under Pam Bondi's leadership. We are investigating multiple attacks on synagogues. It is evil to attack any house of worship in America. It is illegal. And what I saw yesterday made me ashamed, frankly, for the United States, that we have an attorney general in Minnesota, Keith Ellison, a district attorney, Mary Moriarty, a mayor, Jacob Fry, and Tim Waltz, Tampon Tim, who absolutely refuse to enforce our state laws. Their own state laws prohibit this very conduct. Well, if they're not going to enforce their laws, we will enforce our federal laws, and we are already doing that. And so, as you know, and as people have said, the prior administration prosecuted people under the FACE Act for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics where unborn children were being killed inside. Now, that's protected by federal law. That's up to Congress. However, that same law gives us the right at the Department of Justice to prosecute the same kind of conduct vis-a-vis any house of worship. And there's been a lot of talk of the First Amendment thrown around. The First Amendment includes the right to pray without interference. It includes the right of these people to not have so-called journalists and a mob of activists disrupt their sacred day of prayer. And so, as far as I can tell, these very foolish people have already, many of them, self-identified online as to who they were. They posted who their accomplices were. Don Lemon has made numerous admissions online as to his participation here and his intention and his knowledge of what was going to happen inside that sacred place. And so we're gathering the facts, and there will be action here. I know people are frustrated. Where are the arrests, et cetera? Let me explain that for you and your team, Benny, because state prosecutors could have arrested some of these people yesterday. They don't have some of the same hurdles that we do in the DOJ. In DOJ, we gather our facts, we go to a federal judge. A federal judge has to issue the search warrants. We all know what the federal judges are doing right now in Minnesota. We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Harmeet, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is an act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an obscenity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a man, a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there. So it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmeet?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is, if three grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including the unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida. And we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is, there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy to violate civil rights. You have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting our ducks in a row. We're putting the facts together. And this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
So praise God. I mean, that's just so wonderful to hear. I was thinking through and deconstructing this, Harmeet, and thinking, well, wait a second, what would the left do if Alex Jones stormed a mosque and then started interviewing the imam up at the altar, right, or at the front of the mosque, right, while everyone screamed at Muslims trying to pray? Of course, it would be the single biggest protest moment, an offense, and people would lose their minds. The entire country would burn. There would be protests in every city in America. It'd be one of the biggest stories in the world. Why this is allowed to happen to Christians and why it is fomented and why it is giggled at, I'm so thankful for this administration for actually finally drawing the line, because of course you don't want to see this happen at a synagogue. And no, it's not an act of journalism if I kick in the door of a synagogue and run up to the rabbi and start live streaming them as people scream at at Jewish people trying to pray. No, that's not an act of journalism.
It's a desecration. And
it's an act of terrorism. Yes.
One of the issues here is the people on the left that we're talking about, they're not familiar with what goes on inside a house of worship. A lot of them are godless people, obviously, because otherwise, you're right. No matter what house of worship this happens at, this is illegal in America. The FACE Act is non-denominational. We are investigating FACE Act violations against synagogues. And, we have the same problem. There are godless people in this country who are terrorizing people where they are most vulnerable. That is the very last place this should happen in America. It should happen nowhere, of course. No one should feel afraid, but we won't tolerate it. The Attorney General feels deeply about this. We both spoke to the pastor last night who was so calm in the face of a threatening mob invading his sanctuary. He acted very, very bravely and appropriately. And we have given them some guidance on how to proceed here. But look, this will not be allowed to happen anywhere in America, and it's shameful.
That's so wondrous. It's so incredible to hear. So you and Pam Bondi called the pastor. You spoke with the pastor last night. Everyone's praising this pastor for such his calm and peaceful demeanor and keeping his head here.
Yeah, he's actually great, and it turns out he had a North Carolina accent, and I grew up in the same town as his wife, so it's a small world, and he's a great leader of his congregation. But I'm sure every pastor in America is worried: is this crazy lunatic mob, well funded by the left, going to come into my church? They better not. We are on it, and we are putting all the resources possible into it.
Well, that's exactly right. I just wanted to set up a series of events for you, and I'm sure that you've already investigated this because Don Lemon is speaking out directly to you and saying that he had nothing to do with it, except for, well, we can see that Don Lemon was delivering coffee to the protesters beforehand. In Don Lemon's own live, he said that he knows that the protest is about to go and pull up to certain locations, and he can't tell us where they're going to go, but the organizer knew because she posted on Facebook right here. Here's her Facebook post explaining that they were going to attack a church that day. She even tags Don Lemon in this. Then Don Lemon gives the organizer, who's some famous BLM organizer from the George Floyd era, he gives her a kiss live on camera while Don Lemon is sort of leading the charge here into the church.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so
she's
it
a lawyer
defies
too.
Oh, really? So it defies explanation, Harmeet, that they didn't know that he's an innocent party and that he's just journalisming. Really quickly, if you don't mind, he had a message to you, and I'd like to play it here. He got your name wrong, but it's just an act of journalism. Here we go.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because this assistant attorney general, I don't know, gosh, what's her name? Something Harmeet Dhillon or whatever.
So thank you for joining the show, Harmeet.
I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism.
Okay. Your response to Don Lemon.
Well, look, I mean, we have a presumption of innocence in this country, so I want to preserve my ethical duties here. But let me just say that, he's a journalist. He was a journalist. I don't know what he is now, but journalism is not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences when you are part of a crime. And I think the videos show how close he was to these folks. I think further evidence will show more information about that, but he clearly knew, and he stated before going into the facility, it's on his own video, what was going to happen there. What was going to happen was a violation of federal law, federal criminal law. And I don't know what to say. I mean, the FACE Act has been out there for more than 30 years, and there were lawyers involved in this so-called protest, and their purpose was to terrorize people of faith in a house of worship. They were targeting a different pastor, not the one seen on camera, who they got information was a ICE supervisor. None of that matters. It's off limits to go into a house of worship to do your little protest. Protests can occur on public property. Protests can occur outside, on a sidewalk, certain sidewalks, not all sidewalks. And this is like basic what you learn in the first year of law school. There's a time, place, and manner restrictions on the First Amendment right of protest, and they were violated here in this case. No question about it. The only question is who was involved, how many were involved, and how many charges are going to be brought here. Those are the questions.
It's absolutely incredible to hear that. Could you talk us through the last time that this argument was used, which was January 6th? Because I tend to recall, and I know many of them, people who were there on January 6th, and they were filming, right? And they said,
right.
Sorry, my phone was plugged in. They were saying, I was filming, and so therefore I'm a journalist, and I get protection from this act that the federal government said was criminal. And and they didn't get any protection. Steve Baker is one that's pretty famous at the Blaze, but there were many others, and so that certainly did not shield these journalists on January 6th breaking in the U.S. Capitol, right?
You're correct. Look, I've been practicing First Amendment law for over 30 years, and so I have represented many journalists, mostly conservative, not all conservative. And if someone were to come to me and ask me, hey, is it okay if I embed with a gang of criminals about to commit a crime and videotape it? I would say that would be a poor idea. Do not do that. Let me call my criminal defense attorney friend and let's get you retained. If you think you're going to do something crazy like that, you need to get your bail money ready. And I would advise against it. That would be my advice, neutrally, just theoretically. Okay. Now, I don't, the leader of this, or one of the organizers there who got the kiss from Don Lemon is a lawyer. She's a lawyer for BLM. She's a lawyer for the NAACP, or she has been historically, I think, leader of a chapter there of the NAACP. And a lawyer should know better because this law is well known. But forget the law. A human being should know better than to take their protest into an altar in front of a place where people are coming to worship. It is literally supposed to be a sanctuary from all kinds of distress and fear, and a place to get comfort and solace. And this is just godless behavior to take that into a house of worship. It is, I don't know what we've come to here in this country, that people are doing this willingly, but it won't happen again with impunity. It won't happen in this case with impunity. And it's just not going to happen in America. We won't tolerate it.
I know that you cannot comment on this, but just the richness of Don Lemon potentially being charged by the Klan under the Klan Act is just going to be really something else. I wanted to give you an opportunity, since you're approaching this with such strength, to speak to this photo that's now gone viral. This young child who's being comforted by his father, this young Christian child, and he's what looks like either weeping or crying or terrified. This is a image from the live feed where the man was going row by row. This bearded man was going row by row, screaming at and threatening the Christians, calling them fake Christians inside of their house of worship, and physically threatening harm. You can see the child here weeping in his father's arms. And then you can also see Don Lemon afterwards saying the purpose of this protest was to make these children uncomfortable. He said it live on his stream. I'd like to, perhaps you could give a message to these children in that church who experienced this. What is the message from the DOJ, Harmeet?
The message from the DOJ is that the Attorney General of the United States has a zero tolerance policy for this. What we told the pastor of that congregation is we are very sorry that they had to go through that terrorizing incident, and that we are sending reinforcements from DC to make sure that the crimes that occurred yesterday are fully prosecuted. And, there was a racial element to what was said as well. The man you're referring to, who I believe is a vet, very disturbed looking man. He had recently just been arrested and catch and released by Minnesota law enforcement officials, 2 days earlier. I think it was on Friday. And that's why he was free to terrorize this child and his parents and this family. Shameful. But he's shouting about them being white and privileged. And so those are additional things that we're looking at. Is there a racial element to this church being targeted? Because, that's also illegal in America, committing crimes on the basis of the race of the victims. And so I just commend this congregation. They are obviously godly people who were calm in the face of this. I mean, I see people calmly talking with Don Lemon, sticking his little goofy mic into their face. And that's not what they came to church for. They prepared their minds. They came to receive wisdom and seek the comfort of their colleagues and hear a teaching from the pastor. And instead, this is what they got. Well, the lesson learned here is going to be the lesson learned by these so-called protesters, that their right to protest ends outside the church. It does not extend inside the church. If they trespassed in a better run city and state, they would already have been arrested under state law, which can happen much more quickly than I can do, for violation of Minnesota's version of the FACE Act. It's also illegal to do this in Minnesota, and for trespass. I don't think anything's going to happen. I haven't heard a word from Keith Ellison or from Mary Moriarty, the district attorney in Hennepin County, where this happened, about these violations. I haven't heard a word from Tim Waltz about this. I haven't heard a word from the mayor of Minneapolis about this. that's a failure of leadership there, but thank goodness we have a strong and dedicated DOJ and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who will make sure that we explore every avenue to bring the most charges appropriate to do justice in this case.
We cannot emphasize enough how thankful we are for this leadership team at the DOJ. And here's why: you have to make examples. There has to be red lines. There has to be lines in the sand. There has to be hills to die on. And you do not want this happening to your church. Think about your church. Think about what's happened in churches around America, but including in Minneapolis, where 2 young children died after a transgender man shot the church up. 17 different bullets hit children while they were praying, not too far away from this location. The church is under attack. Christian schools are getting shot up and attacked. This is something that is growing. The left is attacking churches. It's godless, it's demonic, it has to end, and people need to be made examples of. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that at scale. And we're praying for you, Harmeet, and we're praying for the entire DOJ, and we're thankful for you standing up. This should not happen to any house of worship, Christian or otherwise. And so my Christian children who go to church every week are thankful for you. Thank you, Harmeet.
Thanks for having us.
Here we go. Follow Harmeet Dhillon right here. Here is her DOJ account. She had very quick and very aggressive updates yesterday on this. A show of force. Godspeed.
Thank you.